What's going on, everyone? My name is Marshall and I'm posting my very first YouTube video on this channel, Running to Pizza. As the name suggests, this channel is going to be all about running. I say specifically my training, just some general training tips, and also just some topics of interest as they come up about running, obviously. In terms of my running, I'm not exactly a D1 caliber athlete. My PRs are like 35-40 for the 10K and 17 flat for the 5K, so you're not going to see many like crazy performances from me or crazy workouts like I don't know, 440 tempo pace type workouts, but I don't know. It's just my journey in running. I love it, so might as well. So for my first video, I figured I'd talk about some topical of interest right now, specifically how the NCAA system is limiting viewership and general appreciation for the sport of cross country. Now, well, one of the ways at least. Now, obviously, this is a pretty big issue, something that can be fixed, but obviously the issues with running not being a mainstream sport in America goes far deeper than what I'm about to talk about. There are a lot of reasons why. Most generally just because most Americans don't have the attention span to watch a bunch of people run uninterrupted for 30 minutes straight. It's not going to ever become mainstream for that reason alone, and a lot of others, but this is definitely one thing that could help the general appreciation of running. So the general public doesn't want to see running races as they would want to see, say, basketball or football, both because most of these races in the NCAA system don't even matter, and also because it's so different from these other mainstream sports. Now, I say that most of these races in the NCAA don't matter. What do I mean by that? Well, we can take an example, Portland. The Portland Pilots tanked their conference meet, got blown away by BYU. BYU scored a perfect 15 against them at the conference meet, and then Portland comes back at NCAA's to get second, beating BYU, by the way. And Portland didn't tank their conference meet because they were sick or because, they generally had a bad race. No, they purposefully tanked this meet, which is they're getting a lot of flack for right now in the running community, I've seen, which I don't think they deserve, honestly. Side note, I don't think they deserve that because the Portland coach, he was just playing the game as, he felt it was best to be played. And it proved true as they became the second best team in the NCAA system, the second best collegiate team. That's pretty damn good. And then, this isn't the only example of a team purposefully tanking meet just so they can rest up for the final and not giving any importance into it. Just last year at the Wisconsin Invitational, Wisconsin, they jogged their home course, their home invitational, because it didn't matter. They could still, they still were a quality team. They still got to go to their conference meet. They still got to go to their regional meet. It didn't matter. They still got to go to the NCAAs. It didn't matter. And that's very different from many other mainstream sports like basketball or baseball. You see in those sports, to get to the final competition, you have to go through many rounds, multiple rounds to qualify for it. You say in basketball, you have Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4, all these things just to get to the final race. But in cross country, you have a bunch of meets that don't matter, then regionals, then NCAAs. You could literally just not race your front squad at all in the regular season, race a B squad, go to regionals with your A team if you're good enough, if you're confident, or if you're in a weak region, or if you're confident enough that you'll make it through your region with an automatic bid. You bring your A team to regionals, their first time racing, they get in, boom, they're in NCAAs, having only raced once. This is the only sport, I bet you, the only sport in which that's actually a thing. Because as I said, in these other sports, you need at least, 5, 6 games to get to the final if you don't get eliminated, obviously. And that is the essence of why people don't care to watch, regular people don't care to watch these meets. Because A, the regular season meets don't matter at all, and B, it's so different from these other sports, from these other more intuitive sports to learn. If you're just a, passerby, per se, getting into the sport for the first time, trying to see, what's it all about, that's going to be kind of confusing coming from a background of any other sport, basketball, football, where you have all these qualifying rounds. Now, obviously, I've said that regular season meets don't matter at all. That's not entirely true. The regular season meets do sort of matter because of the COLA system that has been in place for a few years now, where, if you beat ranked teams that make it to NCAAs, that you have the potential to get an automatic qualifying bid to NCAAs. However, again, to the average Joe just trying to figure out what this sport is, that's very complicated. They're not going to understand that. It's not as intuitive as, say, you play these certain games against these certain teams, like in basketball or football. If you lose, you're out. If you win, you move to the next round. That's intuitive. That makes sense. In cross country, we don't have that. So how do we fix this? How do we make these meets mean something? How do we get people to actually understand this sport like they would a more intuitive sport like basketball, baseball, football, yada yada? We obviously can't make every meet a dual meet where it's just one team versus another team like all those other sports, because that kind of ruins the cross-country feel of having a mob scene of people, going for the glory. That would change it too much. There would be a lot of, I think, backlash from the community in general. I know I wouldn't want that. I don't think anyone else would want that. So I think what we need to do then is make more of these qualifying meets, make them matter more, especially conferences. As we saw, Portland tanked their conference meet. They still got second, but they were destroyed by BYU. We should make that matter, because conference meets, you can get dead last at your conference meet and still go to the regionals. That doesn't make sense at all. It should be a certain percentage or a certain number of teams that are on the bottom half or whatever of their conference meet are not able to advance to regionals, and the top half or top however many do advance to regionals. That way, it is it actually matters. The conference meets actually matter, and also it makes the regional meets a lot less watered down, because let's be honest, most regionals are a few good teams and then the back. So as I mentioned before, this is only one of our sports problems. We're never actually going to become a mainstream sport just because we're not a sport that most Americans have the attention span, basically, to see. But this can make us a bit better and just make more sense in general.